Today, we're diving into the life of one of the most incredible figures in Indian history, Banda Singh Bahadur. His story is it's one of this huge, profound transformation. We're talking about a man who went from being a simple hunter to a spiritual ascetic, and then into a military commander who literally shook the foundations of the mighty Mughal Empire.
And this quote, it just nails it, doesn't it? It really gets to the heart of his story. You ask, was he a saint or was he a warrior? And the answer is, he was something more. He managed to be both. And in doing that, he became this revolutionary who completely changed the course of history in Punjab. Let's dig into how he did it.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to follow his entire journey. We'll start with a single moment that sent him down a spiritual path, see how he transformed into a warrior, how he forged the very first Sikh state, and then we'll look at the controversies that came with his rule. Then we'll talk about his incredible martyrdom, and finally, we'll boil it all down to 5 key takeaways. So, where does a story like this even begin? Well, it doesn't start with the warrior. It starts with a young hunter whose entire life was changed in an instant by a single, tragic moment of regret. He was born way back in 1670 as Lachman Dev in what's now Jammu and Kashmir, and by all accounts, he was a really skilled hunter, loved the outdoors. But then, when he was just 15 years old, something happened that sent him down a completely different path. He becomes an ascetic, takes the name Madho Das, and stays that way, right up until his fateful meeting with the 10th Sikh Guru in 1708. And this is the moment that changed everything. The sources tell us that the young Lachman Dev watched this pregnant deer and her 2 unborn fawns die right in front of him because of his arrow, and he was just overcome with this crushing remorse, so much so that he renounced his entire life right there on the spot. That one act of violence turned him completely against violence, and it kicked off this huge spiritual quest that would define the next chapter of his life. So, after years living as the ascetic Madho Das in a monastery, his destiny takes its most dramatic turn yet. This next phase begins when he meets the 10th Sikh Guru, Guru Gobind Singh. This slide just lays it all out, right? The before and after. On one side, you've got Madho Das, this reclusive saint who would spend years honing yogic and tantric powers. And when the guru shows up at his monastery, Madho Das actually tries to use these powers to intimidate him, but it completely fails. And on the other side, you see the man he becomes, Banda Singh Bahadur, a baptized Khalsa warrior ready to be an instrument of the guru's will. So you might be wondering, where does that new name come from? Well, completely humbled by the guru's spiritual power, Madho Das literally fell at his feet and declared, "I am your Banda, your slave." It was a statement of total devotion. And the guru, well, he saw the heart of a warrior inside this ascetic. He knew his true purpose wasn't in some monastery, but out there on the battlefield fighting injustice. And you gotta understand, he wasn't just sent to wage a random war. He was given a very specific mission. He was tasked with punishing the oppressive Mughal officials, especially this one guy, WarriorKing, the governor of Sirhind. He was the one responsible for the brutal execution of Guru Gobind Singh's 2 youngest sons. To help him, the guru gave him not just soldiers, but these powerful symbols of authority, 5 of his own arrows, a war drum, and a sacred banner. So armed with this divine mandate, Banda Singh just unleashes this military campaign that was so fast and so successful that it sent shockwaves through the Mughal Empire. And it led to the creation of the very first sovereign Sikh state. And if you want to know just how big of a deal this was, look at this number. After this huge battle, the Battle of Shaparcheri, where WarriorKing was killed, Banda Singh's army captured Sirhind. Now, this wasn't just a symbolic win. This place was an economic powerhouse. It brought in 3.6 million rupees a year. He basically seized control of a massive territory stretching from the Sutlej to the Yamunna rivers. But see, Banda Singh wasn't just about winning battles. He was a revolutionary reformer. And to get why his biggest reform was such a big deal, you have to understand this thing called the zamindari system. It was this deeply unfair feudal system where these powerful landlords basically exploited the peasants who worked the land, leaving them poor and in debt. And Banda Singh simply abolished it. Gone. In this radical move that was centuries ahead of its time, he just swept away the feudal lords. He declared that the people who actually worked the land would be its owners. This was an act of social and economic justice that earned him the absolute loyalty of the common people. It cemented his reputation as a true champion of the oppressed. But, it wasn't all smooth sailing. His rule wasn't without its controversies. In fact, his success brought new challenges, and his leadership style actually led to a pretty serious split within the Sikh community itself. Okay, so this is where things get complicated. You had two main groups, the Tat Khalsa, who saw themselves as the pure orthodox followers of Guru Gobind Singh, and the Bandais, who were loyal to Banda. The Tat Khalsa had some serious issues with him. They said he was changing things, wearing red robes instead of the traditional Sikh blue, and pushing for vegetarianism, which went against Khalsa warrior customs. He even introduced a new slogan, Fateh Dashan. But the biggest charge, the most serious one, was that he was acting like a guru himself, using the title Sasha Sahiba, or True Master. This was seen as a direct challenge to the authority of the 10 gurus. Now, modern scholars debate this. Some argue Sasha Sahiba was referring to God, not himself. But at the time, these disputes were very real, and they ended up weakening his position from the inside. All this internal fighting, plus the full might of the Mughal Empire finally turning its attention on him, it all led to his eventual capture. But what happened next, in his final moments? This is what forged his most powerful and lasting legacy. The end came at this fortress, Gurdasanangal. A massive Mughal army surrounded them and laid siege for 8 long months. I mean, you can't even imagine what it was like inside. Banda and his followers were literally starved into submission, forced to eat leaves and the bark off of trees before they were finally captured in December 1715. And what happened next, we actually have an outside source on. There was a British diplomat in Delhi who saw it all, and he wrote down how incredibly brave the captured Sikhs were. As they were being executed in public, day after day, not a single one of them accepted the offer to convert to Islam to save their own life. Their resolve, their courage in the face of death, was just astonishing to everyone who saw it. The final, most brutal ordeal was saved for Banda Singh himself. It is one of the most horrifying executions ever recorded. They placed his 4-year-old son, Ajay Singh, on his lap and ordered him to kill his own child. He refused. So an executioner butchered the little boy right there, and then, in a final act of psychological torture, they thrust the child's still warm heart into Banda's mouth. And through all of this, and as he himself was being tortured to death, his eyes gouged out, his flesh torn with hot pincers, Banda Singh Bahadur remained utterly calm, serene, unbroken. And that spirit, it's just perfectly captured in this famous line. We can get our heads cut, but we cannot bow our heads. His story of defiance has inspired people for generations. It's a testament to a kind of courage that can triumph over tyranny, even in death. Okay, wow, what a story. Let's try to boil all of this down, right? What are the 5 key things we absolutely need to remember about the life of Banda Singh Bahadur? First off, his life was all about radical transformation, from hunter to ascetic to commander. Second, he was the architect of the very first sovereign Sikh state. Third, he was a true revolutionary reformer who empowered the powerless. Fourth, his incredible, unyielding courage during one of the most brutal executions in history became his ultimate legacy. And finally, fifth, he's a complex figure. His leadership was incredibly effective, but it was also, at times, deeply divisive. And that really leaves you with one last question to chew on, doesn't it? In the end, he lost his kingdom, and he lost his life. But maybe his true victory wasn't measured in territory or treasure. Maybe it was won not over an army, but over fear and pain and death itself. And that's a powerful legacy that continues to inspire people to this day.